Okay, so this is the part 2 video. So to start the part 2 video, let's just have a summary over what we're saying about variables underneath root signs. So in a nutshell, here's your summary. You cannot take the square root of negative numbers. It won't work. So if you try square root of -2, square root of -4, if x is negative, you can't do it. Okay? Because remember what square root means. So if I had a piece of land that was 20 square meters, well, let's use a perfect square. Let's say 36 square meters. That would mean that each side was 6 by 6. You could not have a piece of land that was -36. That wouldn't make sense. So you cannot do square root of a negative number. So x, the number underneath, cannot be negative. X has to be bigger than or equal to 0. Think about negative numbers. Negative numbers are less than 0. So x has to be bigger than or equal to 0. That's how we say not negative. So x has to be bigger than or equal to 0. That's your summary. So down here, we would use that summary to help us. So what could x be here? What possible numbers could we have so this could work out? Because whatever x is, you're going to take 5 away from it. And right now you might be thinking, like, sir, how are you supposed to do that? Well, let's start with what we know. We know that no matter what this works out to, the answer has to be bigger than or equal to 0. Okay? Then there's something you're allowed to do in math. You can square both sides. Square this side, square that side. If I square this side, I get rid of the root sign, or the radical sign. So I'll be left with just x minus 5. 0 squared is just 0. And then, well, solve it like you would an equation. By the way, this is called an inequality. When you have this here, when you have that, or this, or this, or that. These are called inequalities because it doesn't equal anything. It gives you a range of answers: bigger than or equal to, less than or equal to, bigger than, less than. This is the only thing called an equation if it's got an equal sign. So x minus 5 equals 0. This is an equation. 5 comes over, x equals 5. That's an equation. This is an inequality. X has to be bigger than or equal to, you bring the 5 over, negative becomes positive, 5. That's it. So whatever, this is giving you a range of answers. That whatever number you put in here can be 5 or greater. So you put in 5, 5.5, 6, put in 6,000. The number can be 5 or greater. That's it. And it will always work. Your answer will always be bigger than or equal to 0. Try it. Try a few numbers. You'll see it works out. I'm not going to do all of them. There's no fun in that because you wouldn't have anything to do. Here, same deal. You make this an inequality. It has to be bigger than or equal to 0. Then you get rid of the, so you can't solve this with the radical sign there. Okay? Can't be solved with the radical sign there. This is why you're going to square both sides. Squaring gets rid of the radical sign. You get left with 5x minus 30 bigger than or equal to 0. You get rid of whatever you're adding or subtracting. Negative 30. You're going to bring that over to the other side. Negative 30 becomes 30 when you move it over. And now you're multiplying by 5. So you divide by 5. So your answer is x has to be bigger than or equal to 6. There. And restrictions on variables when you're dealing with denominators. Well, this is one that we're going to top it in class because this one here, the restriction is going to be based on the fact that the denominator cannot be 0. You cannot do division by 0. So if you have 1 divided by 0, that's impossible. You can't take something and divide it by nothing. Think, you could take 4 and divide it by 2. You get 2. All right. Take 1 and divide it nothing ways. It doesn't make sense. You know, I like thinking of Kit Kat bar. Kit Kat bars have 4 pieces. I could take the 4 bars, divide them one way by myself, and I would end up with 4 pieces. I could take the 4 pieces, divide them among 2 people, me and a buddy, and we will both have 2 pieces. You can do that. I cannot take the 4 pieces and divide them 0 ways. That doesn't make sense. So the denominator can never ever be 0. Division by 0 is not allowed. So all that means here is that the equal sign ends up getting dropped from the restriction. So that your square root x has to be bigger than, not equal to 0. But here, restriction of 3x minus 9 has to be bigger than 0. We'll talk about this one more in class.